Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. I am Tom.
I'm Al. Thanks for downloading us. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our show.
And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a happy review. It really helps us out.
And we are on all the different social networks, even the ones you can't even think of. Instagram. What else is out there, Tom? We got all kinds of stuff.
We got Twitter. We got Facebook. We got.
We're also available, as Tom indicated, on a website. We're at the www.themegameeple.com. That's all one word, themegameeple.com. And you can find some of the information about what we do here on that site.
Very good. So, without any further ado, let's whip up some mac and cheese, grab a Mountain Dew. Let's get on with the episode. But yeah, we're fast approaching Christmas, and I think for the next episode we're gonna have our Christmas list of what we like to get for Christmas. Hint, hint.
All the games.
So, but and then of course we'll do the obligatory best of 2017, and then once we pass over the new year, we'll talk about what we're looking for coming up in the next year. At least of the games that we are aware of that's coming out in that year. So those are just some of the things that to look forward to in future episodes. But this episode, we're gonna, we're not taboo stuff, but I'd seen a comment on one of the gaming groups on Facebook about somebody that was seeking advice and input of a particular game. He had hosted some people over at his house to play a game, and the people that came over wanted to play Secret Hitler. And he was not comfortable with that. I mean, that was a good game, but he just wasn't comfortable with the theme, the context of the game. So he was basically bouncing the idea off as like, well, do I prevent them? Do I prohibit them from playing the game? It's their guest in my house type of thing, or do I just pick my battles and bite my tongue and that type of stuff?
Yeah, it may sound like it's being overly politically correct, but I mean, maybe you've got children, maybe you got a spouse who just simply feels uncomfortable with the topic of a particular game session. So, how do you deal with that? How do you, from a social aspect, do you force it on? Do you acquiesce? What is the ways that how can you deal with those kind of situations?
Yeah, because it's you want everybody to have fun and enjoy themselves. But if there's a topic or a theme that makes someone uncomfortable, they're not going to have fun playing. I could tell you there's one game that was just recently on Kickstarter, and I did not back it, and I could tell you right now I'm not interested in playing it. It's by the looks of it, it's a great game. But the theme and the setting of the game is not for me, and it's a game called Coma Ward.
Interesting.
And if you want to get sort of a backstory context, I share a bit back in episode 17. It's a dark episode, so be forewarned. But if you want some context of what I'm talking about, of why I would not like that game, just listen to that episode. But for the place I'm at now, that playing that game would just bring back too many bad memory experiences.
Sure, understood. from another aspect, there's a couple of games, the Conan miniature game and Kingdom Death Monster, both of which use miniatures that are pretty explicit. In addition to being, in some cases, having some rather gory and disturbing images as well, which certainly for the Conan theme, you can understand where that's coming from a barbarian theme. If you're going to, use that as your basis and theme, if you're going to use that, then go for the gold. Don't drop out and pretend there's not going to be that sort of material involved. But that's not going to be necessarily a game for your 12-year-old to join in.
Right. And even I have all the expansions for the others and stuff like that, and some of the minis of the demons and creatures and that are pretty. If I was a child, it would give me nightmares. And then there's some games where the artwork on the cards are really gory or
disturbing,
grotesque or weird, that may disturb children or just people that are really sensitive to that.
It's funny. I've played Secret Hitler, and it's a good political multiplayer social game, as it turns out. I just wish they'd themed it differently.
Right.
Because it makes you feel like that you're taking the side of a person who was out to destroy millions upon millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand how the individual that you were talking about on BGG would have that issue. And I had felt the same way before I played it. Then after I played it, I understood it to be a little bit different from what I saw from the title of the game. So I can see it from both sides.
Yeah. How much do you think just the title alone was more of just a marketing thing, just
I'm
to
sure
grab
it was.
somebody's attention?
Plus, some people find that the World War II theme of interest. Certainly, from a wargaming aspect, that's always been one of the favorite styles of game. This, on the other hand, invokes specifically the name of the individual we're discussing, Hitler, and making it seem as if that one group is trying to be helpful to his side. And by dealing with that directly, it gets into a realm that's kind of difficult to for some people to reconcile.
Yeah, and I know as I'm kind of, sometimes I just peruse through Kickstarter to see what kind of stuff is coming out, and I'm seeing, especially this past year, a lot of more political themed games, and so I mean, even like these podcasts here, I've always maintained that as if I can at all help it, I don't want to introduce any political or social commentaries in these podcasts because the world's screwed up as it is.
Who says we're right?
So, I mean, I go to gaming like we talked before about movies. It's an escapism. The world is crazy, and if there's any craziness in a game or a movie, or specifically for a game, I'd rather have it be a mechanic that I'm able to control. Or fun part about going insane in a Cthulhu game or something like that. But I mean, I go to the gaming table to have fun and escape from all that. So to have those type of themes introduced into just the theme and the feel of the game may rub people some people the wrong way.
Sure. Back in the day when I was a young guy, back when before dirt, I would not have enjoyed this as a zombie type theme. I always thought that those themes of movies were disgusting, and I just didn't think there was any kind of enjoyment to them. I don't know if it's me who changed or the movies that's changed, but that sort of thing doesn't bother me as much anymore. But a lot of that kind of depends on the individual's age and their point of view.
Right. And that harks back to what I was saying about the Coma Award. It's like, it looks like a really cool game, but because of my medical history, I just have to say that game's just not for me.
Yeah,
that's a phrase that is, I think more people could use, rather than putting down a game or so. Oh, that game's stupid. Well, no, just say that game is not for you.
There's another set of games that have used slaves as part of their theme, if not necessarily as part of the an individual group that you're working with. One that comes to mind is, I believe it's Five Tribes. That one of the groups that you were potentially buying at the time were slaves, and they were required or requested, I guess, more to the point, to retheme that particular part so that they'd be labeled as something else, because people just simply didn't feel comfortable, buying slaves as part of the process.
Right. So as it was. Getting back to the person who was commenting on social media, I think a lot of the advice or insight that he received from his question was, you'd say that you're not comfortable with this game, but there's plenty of, like, for example, the specific example he was using, Secret Hitler. There are plenty of other games that use that same mechanic of, like, hidden role, stuff like that. What is it?
Social deduction.
Yeah. Resistance, coup.
There are other options, in other words.
Yeah.
So deflect. If they say they really want to play a particular game that has a particular style and theme, there's always another way to look at that. There's always another game out there that, while maybe not being precisely the same, hopefully, that there's an option that might fulfill everybody's needs.
Right. So it's rather than just saying, no, I don't allow this game at my table or my house, have some other game that scratches that itch, so to speak.
Yeah.
So everybody could still play that style or mechanic of game, and everybody could still have fun.
Is there a particular style or a theme of game that just simply doesn't turn you on, Tom? Is there any particular game? I'm not saying it based on the mechanic, but on the theme.
On the theme,
I've got one, and mine are, and it's not as bad as it used to be, but it used to be games that were built on intellectual properties outside of gaming. So they, BSG would be a good suggestion for that. Battlestar Galactica, of course, was a TV show and so forth. And up until, that's a good example actually, up until there, most games that were based on movies were awful. And or TV shows. And I found myself rather, for the most part, avoiding those games because they just simply didn't put a lot of work into the mechanics of the game. BSG was a good example of where that started turning around. It's more the mechanic and the style of play for you, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, it's more the mechanic, like legacy games. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could open up any of these boxes on my shelf here, and you'll see that I have it organized in a certain way. I have the cards set up a certain way. I'm not OCD because all you got to do is look at my bedroom and there's stuff all over the place. So I think it's just more of, okay, gaming is really important to me. I'm not very passionate about it, so I take a lot of pride on how things are stored and displayed and stuff like that.
Heck, they're not cheap. But that way you can get at a view, you can see if you got everything you're supposed to have and so forth. I kind of like those broken token style things that allow you to kind of create a customized insert to a certain extent.
Yeah,
for that reason.
There's at least 4 or 5 games in here that has a broken token in there in the box. But as far as like mechanics, the whole legacy stuff is. And again, just because I take a lot of pride in taking care of my toys, so to speak, just marking things up or ripping them up, just kind of, I don't know, it's like nails on chalkboard. It's like,
and just funny because perhaps because of some computer games where you could customize things, which I rather enjoyed. I kind of like the capacity to customize the names of like cities and groups and so forth, so that it becomes more yours. Those legacy games to me have that aspect. I'm also kind of a big fan of campaign style games, but role playing games kind of falls into that. So I guess I have a more comfort level with doing that with that kind of build your own kind of mechanism.
Yeah, see, if I it helps if they have the ability of getting like Charterstone. They have these recharge packs that you could get and sort of like reset the game. So to me, and I guess it's like a purist type mentality. Is like I want to have at least one copy of the game that's not
pure. Yeah,
that's not.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Been muddled. So.
No, it's kind of like having a nice library. You want to be able to read the book and enjoy it, but you also have to be able to present it as well.
Right.
I agree. I understand what you're saying.
You buy 2 books. You read one and mark one up, and you keep the other one under glass.
Yeah. You have one in paperback and the other one that you put on the shelf, right?
Because I enjoy stuff that's really like dark and gothic and supernatural or ghost or stuff like that. So there's not much outside of that would rub me the wrong way. I think too with getting back with some of the weird explicit minis and stuff of that nature. If like for example the whole Mice and Mystics and the new game coming out with from Plaid Hat, I think I don't know if it's based on the same universe of Mice and Mystics called Stuffed Fables, but the minis are basically your cute stuffed animals and stuff like that, and then Mice and Mystics is you play these really cute mice running around
chasing cheese.
Yeah, trying to save the king or queen or whatever. It's been a while since I played that, but that's always one of my favorite cutesy games that we have.
Yeah, well, cutesy can be also irritating.
Yeah,
too much. It's funny. I know a lot of people love that game, Mice and Mystics. I just didn't find anything to it.
So this is the point of the episode where we turn to you guys out there in podcast land. So what about you? And respond to us. Answer. This is our question of the week. Is there any type of theme game that is just off limits for you, that you're not comfortable playing, or as we said, it's a game or a theme that's just not for you? So, and you could answer that question and then give us your feedback at any one of our social media outlets and Facebook, Twitter, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and if you got to take this different than ours on how to deal with, like a party that's at your place and how to deal with that kind of situation, please feel free to tell us what you think.
Yeah, and how you handle that situation. So, yeah, it just your input could help a lot of other people that have found themselves in that same situation.
And who knows, we could even be wrong.
Yeah, but no,
not likely. No, yeah.
Nah. Well, don't hit the stop button yet, because our interview for this episode is John D Clair, who is the creator of Mystic Vale, and he also was the innovator of the card crafting mechanic that is used in Mystic Vale. And he has an interesting story of how that mechanic came to be, and you'll be interested in knowing that Mystic Vale was not the original game that was supposed to be released.
It's kind of they kind of developed it out, from what I understand, from a mini game that was within a larger development. I don't want to steal his thunder, but they managed to turn this card crafting it kind of into a training style game to move you forward for what they have intended in the future.
Yep. So he is up next on the second half of this episode. Stay tuned for that. We'll go to that right now. Okay, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. And one of the cool things about doing a podcast is you get to talk to a lot of cool people in the industry and get the behind the scenes story of certain games right from the source. And our guest today is John D Clair. Now, you may or may not recognize the name, but chances are you have a copy of Mystic Vale on your gaming shelf. So you just pull that box down and what do you know? Right at the top of the box, John D Clair. Hi, John. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Well, I know you have a Kickstarter that is currently going on, but I want to talk to you first off just about Mystic Vale. Now, it has its it's the third expansion coming out pretty soon.
The third one is. Yep, the third one's going to be out. I think first on sale at Essen, I guess next week, right? And then probably in retail stores shortly thereafter. I don't know exactly when, but soon, yeah.
Yeah, and the previous two expansions, Vale of Magic and Vale of the Wild. But going back to the core box Mystic Vale, just the fascinating mechanic of card crafting. You got to tell us how did you come up with that?
So inspiration comes from different things. Sometimes it sort of comes out of nowhere. Sometimes it's a little forced. It doesn't always work this way, but the card crafting idea was actually a very much forced innovation for me. I was actually specifically sort of mentally brainstorming trying to think of things that had never been done before. Like I was literally just in my brain working on, how can I I want a starting point in a game design of something that's totally new. So the path I went down was thinking of components that are common game components, but is there a way that they've never been used before, or a new way to use them, right? So I thought about the box. Is there a way to use the box differently? And there's some games that use the game box as a component in the game, right? I thought about dice towers or cube towers. I thought about dice. Thought about cards, and then at some point my brain landed on card sleeves, and it occurred to me that card sleeves had never been actually used as a requirement in a game, right? I mean, they're a common game component that everyone knows about, right? People use them to protect their cards, but I'd never played a game that you couldn't play without using card sleeves. So when I landed on that, I was like, okay, there could be something there, right? Is there, what if there was a game that you needed card sleeves in order to play? What might that look like? And using transparent cards wasn't actually the first place I went to. I went with what I originally thought of was that the sleeves themselves could have, say, icons on the front of the sleeve that indicate a player faction icon or something like that. And everyone could play out of one central deck. and own different cards in that deck. And it would be sort of like a deck builder where we're all building one central deck. And whenever you buy a new card, you put it into one of your own personal faction sleeves, and then it goes in a central deck. And the backs of those sleeves are all the same, but the front has the player faction icon on it. And that way, when you draw cards, you can see who owns what card, and then if you want to use somebody else's card, you have to pay them for it. And it was sort of a group deck building where everyone builds one central deck. That's where I started. And actually, that's the core mechanism of my game Edge of Darkness, which will be on Kickstarter in February. It was sort of the original card crafting game I came up with.
Okay.
But the next step of the innovation was to, in that process, realize, okay, you can actually do a lot of things with card sleeves, including sleeving multiple cards into a single sleeve. And then if you combine that with transparent cards, now you can do some really interesting combos where you're actually sort of crafting the cards themselves. And Edge of Darkness ended up combining those two things, so it has the transparent cards that you craft, as well as that shared deck building. And then Mystic Vale was the next place I went for using that mechanic, and I wanted to sort of design a more gateway, lighter game than Edge of Darkness. So Mystic Vale came out of that, which is more of a traditional deck builder, except you're crafting the cards rather than adding cards to your deck.
Okay. So Mystic Vale is, I guess, the second card crafting game that you came up with that came out of that initial design.
Yeah. AEG is going to do Edge of Darkness. They originally they were going to do Edge of Darkness first, and I actually, was still working on Mystic Vale. It wasn't until after they had picked up Edge of Darkness. A few months later, I pitched them Mystic Vale also, and said, "Well, here's a lighter game." They actually had asked me, they were interested in, maybe we could follow up Edge of Darkness with a lighter, more gateway style game that uses that same card crafting. So I'd gone back to the design table, and I already had some ideas at that point. And then I came up with Mystic Vale and pitched that to them, and then Mystic Vale came together really quickly, and they decided, let's focus on this, let's really polish it and get the balance right, and then actually go ahead and release Mystic Vale first. So,
I mean, the mechanic of it is just so original and unique, and not to mention that the artwork is beautiful. So it was
well, thanks. They got great art. Yeah.
Yeah.
The art director over at AEG has done a great job with that one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know at least along at my gaming table and some of the gaming tables and stuff, groups I see at my local gaming stores, that Mystic Vale is a big hit, and one that comes out to the table quite a few times.
Great.
So,
yeah. It's good to hear.
So is there other things that you could that may be starting to form, and as far as like other games with card crafting, or is it right now just concentrated on that initial game for February?
So there's a lot of design space that is still untapped with regard to card crafting, and it's been a bit of my focus on the design side is trying to explore some of those open areas of design space that as a designer, working with AEG, I'm of course competing with, and AEG is competing with brilliant other designs from other great designers, right? So being able to work with the card crafting system as a sort of unique thing that isn't seen in other games is one way to stand out, right? So I'm working on a few other card crafting games right now. One is nearing a point where it's starting to look like what the final probably play of the game would look like. That's a high seas pirate area control, card driven area control game. And then of course Edge of Darkness, which I'm working on some expansion content for and some Kickstarter content. We have all of the base game stuff for Edge pretty much done. They want to have they have a sort of ambitious goal of both launching the Kickstarter in February and hopefully having it on sale at Gen Con of next year, meaning it would have to deliver to backers before Gen Con, right? So that's sort of ambitious. So it means a lot of content needs to be ready to go before February, so that they can hit the print button right after the Kickstarter. So a lot of my work right now is on making sure that stuff is polished. But there's a number of other games on the back burner that use the card crafting system, including that pirate game that I'm working on.
Excellent. So that's coming up in February. Thank you so much, John, and we're looking forward to creation of, or actually the original creation of card crafting coming out Kickstarter next year.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple. If you'd like to help us out with hosting costs for the podcast, you go to our Pod Pledge site and donate $1 or so every month. Really helps out.
Yeah, we also have a Patreon presence, and we'd be happy if you also help us out there.
And also, if you are a creator or game designer, or you have a new Kickstarter coming out, and you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about your game, you can contact us through the website. Again, that's www.themegameeple.com.
So thanks for joining us. He's Tom.
He's Al.
And hope you'll join us again next week.